Hey folks, this is a video tutorial on how to make the Bauble Placemat. We have chosen this design to be our October Kiss Sew Along. The simple yet beautiful placemat features 4 different bauble designs. They can be made in either the 4x4, 5x5, 6x6 and the 7x7 hoops. In this video tutorial, we explain the stitch out of block 4 and how to turn the blocks into a placemat. We recommend you follow our photographed written instructions in conjunction with this video tutorial. The link for the Sew Along group will be in the description. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please like and subscribe. Begin by hooping up cutaway stabilizer in the hoop and load the design onto your machine. Then place batting 1 on top of the hoop and stitch down. When laying down batting, we use the pink thing to keep it lying flat so it doesn't bunch up under the needle. Once stitched down, remove the hoop from your machine and trim the batting about 1 to 2 mm from the stitching, using your applique scissors. Next, place fabric A right side up on top of the hoop covering the batting. Stitch down. Embroider the string and top of the bauble. Stitch the placement line for the bauble. Place fabric B right side up on top of the hoop, covering the placement line. Stitch down. Remove the hoop from your machine and trim the fabric about 1 to 2 mm from the stitching. Embroider the background star. Repeat the applique process with the star using fabric C. And trim. Embroider the satin stitch around the star. Embroider the satin stitch around the bauble. Embroider the background star in the center of the bauble. Embroider the foreground star in the center of the bauble. Embroider the circle in the center of the bauble. You have now completed the stitch out of bauble 4. Remove your work from the hoop and trim the seams to about 1/2 inch using a rotary cutter and ruler. Here you have the completed block. Hold aside and follow the instructions for the remaining blocks you want to make. Great work! Let's join the blocks. Lay out your placemat in order. Place the first 2 blocks right sides together. Pin along one edge, lining up the border stitching the best you can. Take your time with this process. Take the pin blocks over to your sewing machine and sew a 1/2 inch seam, sewing just inside the border lines already on the panels. Continue this until you have each horizontal row of blocks joined. Open out the stitch seam and iron flat. Next, join the horizontal rows to each other by placing the first two rows right sides together. Pin and stitch the seams on your sewing machine. Stitch just inside the border already stitched on the blocks, so the stitching will not be seen on the right sides later. Open out the stitch seams and iron flat. Perfect. Now how to add the borders. If you would like borders, first decide how wide you would like them. We made our 7 cm, 2.5 inches wide. Then measure the length of the placemat. Cut 2 strips of border fabric the length you just measured, fabric D. Then cut 2 pieces of batting 2 to match. Secure the batting to the border fabric. This can be done in 2 ways. The first option is to place the border fabric right side up on top of the batting and with a long basting stitch, so a 1/4 inch from the edge. Basting the long edges together will prevent them from moving. Use a bobbin thread that will stand out for this step. The second option is to lightly spray temporary adhesive to the batting, then lay your fabric right side up on the batting. We chose to use the spray base method. Place the border fabric with the attached batting on top of the placemat, right sides together. Pin or clip and stitch a 1/2 inch seam from the edge. Pinning and stitching on the wrong side of the placemat means you can make sure you're stitching inside the borderline on the front of the placemat. This will ensure this line of stitching will not show on the front. If you use basting stitches on your borders, go ahead and remove them now. Trim back the batting from the seam allowance to reduce any bulk. Fold over and press the side border down neatly. Top stitch the border for a neat, flat finish. Repeat for the opposite border. If needed, trim the borders to make them even. Now measure one of the side edges without a border, including the new border width in your measurement. Cut 2 strips of border fabric the length you just measured, fabric E. Then cut 2 pieces of batting 3 to match. Repeat the basting stitch method or use the temporary adhesive spray that we did for the first 2 borders. Place the border fabric with the attached batting on top of the placemat, right sides together. Pin or clip and stitch a 1/2 inch seam from the edge. If you use basting stitches on your borders, go ahead and remove them now. Trim back the batting from the seam allowance. Fold over and iron the side border down neatly. Top stitch the border for a neat, flat finish. Repeat for the opposite border. If needed, trim the borders to make them even. Looking good, everyone. Let's add the backing. Place fabric F backing on your table, right side facing up. Place your sewn placemat on top of fabric F, right sides together. Pin in place, leaving an opening of about 5 inches, 13 centimeters for turning. Stitch a 1/2 inch seam, remembering to leave the opening. Trim the seams to 1/4 inch, leaving about 1/2 inch at the opening. Clip the corners for more pointed ones when turned. Turn the right way out through the opening. Use that pink thing or chopstick to help push the corners out. Press with the iron. Hand stitch the opening closed. Stitch in the ditch the seams to attach the backing. Make sure your bobbin matches the backing fabric. Top stitch the outer edges of the borders. Make sure your bobbin matches your backing fabric. Give it a good press with the iron. Your placemat is now finished. Enjoy. Thanks for watching our video tutorial on the Bauble Placemat. All the best with your entries to the October sew along. For more beautiful machine embroidery designs, go to swepea.com. That is swpea.com. See you next time.